Hey everybody, good to be with you. You know what it means when I sit down in the green chair? It means that it's live, raw, unedited. David Burns, good to be with you. Thanks for joining me today. And I've got something really on my heart that I want to share with you about beekeeping. I think it's going to be really beneficial for all of you, whether you're brand new to beekeeping or you've been beekeeping a while. I think it's going to be helpful. Before I get started though, let me say good to be with you because all last week I was at EAS, which stands for the Eastern Apicultural Society of North America. Been around for a long time. It's a great big conference, scientific research, Master Beekeeper Certification Organization known as EAS, Eastern Apicultural Society. I've been with them since 2009. I've enjoyed it. I got certified as a master beekeeper through EAS in 2010. And since then, I've been working with them in some way or another. Most significantly, I've been helping them with the master beekeeper certification process. And so all last week, I was there as the field team leader, testing candidates in the field. I wasn't doing as much as my team that we put together of master beekeepers. They test candidates in the field. And then we have an oral test, a written test, and a lab test. So there's a lot that goes into it. So all week long, I participated as well in the oral test as an examiner. And so stayed busy the whole week with that. Actually, it's amazing. But it's a great conference. If you've never gone to EAS, don't go anywhere. I got something to tell you that's really good about beekeeping. I've taken something I've learned over the last 20 plus years in beekeeping, and I've just squeezed out this nugget of truth that I want to share with you in just a second. But I want to say that it is good to be back from EAS. If you've never attended, I really strongly urge you to check it out. This is unedited, but I'm going to drop the link right here to EAS. It's a great conference, a yearly conference. We thought we were going to be in Michigan in 2025, but that didn't work out. And so we're going to be in New Jersey in 2025. So if you're looking to be a part of that conference, be sure and watch the website. I'm sure it's going to be updated soon about the new location and everything. It usually occurs in the month of August, sometimes July, but usually in August. And so I think it's usually the first week in August. It could change a little bit, but that gives you an idea. It's going to be next summer. I'd love to see you there. Love for you to be a part of this conference. It's an outstanding conference. Scientists. EAS has 3 strong arms to it as an organization. It's been around forever. It's got great names associated with it. Very awesome people that are always there. That you've heard of, but the 3 arms are education, research, and certification of master beekeepers. So that's really why the organization exists. It's really powerful. The EAS Master Beekeeper Program is one of the oldest. It's called the grandfather of all master beekeeper certification processes that was started by Roger Moores from Cornell. And so it's just got a rich history for sure. And speaking of the Master Beekeeper Program, in the past few years, we've had Dr. Debbie Delaney acting as the overall academic director of the Master Beekeeper Certification Program. And this year, she has taken time off and is now being replaced by Dr. David Peck. Many of you know Dr. David Peck. They're with Better Bee. They're research educator, and he speaks at a lot of conferences, and he's on YouTube a lot. We've had him on our live stream several times. So Dr. Peck is going to be serving now as the academic advisor over the EAS Master Beekeeper Program. So I'm excited about that. It's going to be fun. But anyway, back from there, it rained a lot while I was there. The storms that came on shore by Florida, and then they traveled up the East Coast into where we were. I mean, on Friday it just poured and was windy. I didn't know if I was going to catch my plane out the next day, but I did. I got to fly out on Saturday to come back home. So that all worked out well. All right, let's talk about this gold nugget of something I've learned in beekeeping. Now, a lot of you are going to benefit from what I'm going to share with you. Some of you may not like it. Now, just because you don't like it, what I'm about to say, doesn't mean that it's still not beneficial. It's still going to be helpful. Sometimes what we hear may not be what we want to hear, and that's why we don't like it, because I don't want to hear that. You know, I'd rather something go this way or that way. But let me just share my heart. That's what this is all about. In the green chair, sharing my heart. And so let me just get right into it. Now, in beekeeping, when I started, many of you know, there was no internet back then. Yes, there was fire. We already had fire invented back then. Oh gosh, stop it. I'm not that old. But there was no internet, there was no YouTube. So beekeeping was a little challenging. We didn't have the studies that we have now. The research that we have now was nothing compared to when I started. So it was a little more challenging back in those days, but I started nonetheless. And over the years, I've had a very colorful journey in beekeeping. I've done a lot. I've done almost everything there is to do in beekeeping, one way or the other, over the years, okay? And I've gained a lot of experience the hard way. I'm basically self-taught. I'm not a PhD. I'm not an entomologist per se, a degreed entomologist from a university, for example, but I'm self-taught. And I take comfort in that because I admire people that are PhDs, and I admire entomologists and their work that they do. But there's a lot to be said for somebody that can roll up their sleeves and jump into a hive over the years and learn and learn and learn, mistake after mistake after mistake, failure, 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 learn, learn, learn. Wow, hard knocks. Leave a comment if you've ever succeeded in the University of Hard Knocks and Common Sense. Critical thinking. All right, yeah. So I wanted to share some things about this with you because I think it's going to help you. In beekeeping today, there's a tendency, and it's gotten a lot worse, there's a tendency for beekeepers to want the same results as beekeepers that have been keeping bees for a long time. Do you know what I mean by when I say that? I think you get it, don't you? I think this is something that is growing at a faster rate. I didn't see it so much when I first started, but I'm seeing it more often, more frequently now. It's more rampant in beekeeping. So, for example, it's always kind of better and easier when you're facing something in beekeeping, and instead of really diving in and looking to find out these answers to the questions you have, it's easier to just get the answer rather than spend the time to learn and figure out, apply critical thinking skill, and then come up with the answer, validate it by talking to somebody that knows the answer, and then you think, aha, that's it. Sometimes it's easier just to get the answer. You know, there's a name for this. It's not just in beekeeping. It's in a lot of things. You may have seen it if you're a parent raising children. It's called learned helplessness. It's a thing that happens sometimes in children, that they will, rather than learn something and apply it and run with it, they might find it a lot easier just to have mom and dad do it. Hey, mom and dad, mom, would you do that for me? I don't want to do that. I'd rather you do it. Can you do that? You know, I think I was a little bit that way when I was growing up. You know, it was it was easier for me to keep a messy room and expect my mom to clean my room up for me. Oh, I can't do it. My arm is broke or something like that. I don't know. In beekeeping, I think there's sometimes that we know, no matter what level you are, if you're a new beekeeper or if you've been keeping bees a long time, you know that solving a problem in your hive is very involved. You know that. Everybody knows that. I know that. Even though it may come easier for some of us, if you have a situation in your hive that is a problem, it's going to take a lot to solve it in beekeeping. And that's why you always keep your fingers crossed when you're a beekeeper, especially a new beekeeper, that nothing strange will happen, right? Because if I see swarm cells, if I lose my queen, if I see laying workers, if I see what appears to be European foul brood, American foul brood, chalk brood, deformed wing virus, parasitic mite syndrome, if my bees swarm in a tree, and if they're bearding on the front, if they're not drawing out wax. I mean, all of these scenarios are just like putting beekeepers in a quandary on what to do next. I have no idea. What am I supposed to do? I know this because I get over 200 questions in my comment section on my YouTube channel per day. And that's because I have nearly 800 videos. And of those 800 videos, people are watching them and asking questions. And so I can get easily get a couple hundred questions a day, people asking me scenarios. Now, if you're one of those people that ask me questions and you see that I can't answer your questions sometimes, it's because, look at me. I'm one guy. And I got to be honest with you, it's difficult sometimes like last week, I don't even know if I answered any comments on YouTube because I was so busy at EAS. I'm making a video right now. I'm not answering questions. When I'm done filming, I got to post the video. Even though it's unedited, normally an edit takes me 4 hours to edit a video after I film it. So you get the point. I'd love to answer all your questions. I do that on live streams on Thursday night. Even though it's unedited video right now, I'll put the link right here because I want you to be a part of my live stream because I want to answer your questions. However, I also know that sometimes, I thought it was going to be in the shade, but the sun is, the first filming it was, but now that I'm having to redo it, I'm going to be in the sun. Sorry that my color's wrong. What was I saying? I think that sometimes when I answer questions, I feel like I'm really not helping people because giving somebody one answer to one question, but they may not have this holistic understanding of beekeeping in general, it doesn't always help them. Does that make sense? Let me give you an example. Okay, here's an example. Let's say you've never driven a car before. You're a brand new beekeeper, or you're brand new to a car, okay? And you don't know the difference between a steering wheel, brake pedal, gas pedal, key, or a fob, or a button to start it, where the wipers are. You have no idea. Let's just say you're brand new, you sit down. You bought the car, you bought it, and you put gas in it, like you bought a hive and you put bees in it. You bought this car, now you sit down in the front of the car, and it just doesn't make any sense. How do you turn it on? How would you go? How do you back up? Now, if you send me a comment and say, David, I bought a car, I put gas in it, I'm sitting in the front seat, what does this big round thing do that I'm looking at? Well, there's lots of round things. Well, I'm assuming you mean the steering wheel. If I typed back and said, the steering wheel makes you go right or left, it steers the car. Okay, thank you for your answer. I immediately think, oh my gosh, what about the gas pedal? What about the brake? I always watch planes go over. So I feel like if I really do answer one question, do they really understand all the other things that they didn't mention. Maybe they do. Maybe they just didn't know what the steering wheel was for. So that's my fear sometimes, is that by answering one question, I'm hoping they know the rest. But sometimes you can tell when they ask one question that they may not know basically all the things they need to know. And I think sometimes in beekeeping, and like I've mentioned, it's something we call learned helplessness. It would be easier for me sometimes, and okay, I got a perfect example. I told you this would be live and unedited. All right, here's an example. And this has happened, by the way. You're in an airplane and the pilot becomes unable to be the pilot anymore. Heart attack, I don't know, something happened, right? And so there's either a passenger who may not be a pilot that is going to take control and get on the radio and say, something's happened to our pilot, what do I do? And there have been examples that people have been able to land a plane without any experience, without a pilot's license, by being talked down by air traffic control. It's happened. It's amazing. It's so complicated. I can't believe people can do it, but it's happened, okay? All right, so let's say somebody was a passenger and they were talked down, they landed the plane, and everybody was like, whoo, yay, you saved our lives, and my gosh, and maybe the pilot's gonna be okay, take him off to the hospital. Everything turned out really well. Now, the next day, are they gonna call that person back up who was a passenger that landed the plane? Are they gonna call them back up and say, you did such a great job, we'd like for you to fly these passengers from here to Hawaii? No, that's not gonna happen. It's just, so let me make, if you don't follow me, sometimes as beekeepers, some beekeepers are like the passenger that's been asked to be up front, and you're going to be talked through the process of landing the plane. You're going to be talked through the process of keeping your bees. What do I need to know now? What do I do now? Could you do that? Yeah. It's not always the best way unless you already have a very good working knowledge. Now, if you already have some experience in beekeeping, and if you've already taken a class, if you've already read some books, then you will ask less questions. The pilot, or the passenger might say, I don't even know where the throttles are. I've all these things, I don't even know what does the throttle mean, right? But if you've already read and studied that particular airplane, and if you've already, looked at pictures, read books, you'll know where the throttles are. So in beekeeping, that's why it's important to take classes, to have a working knowledge, because then when you have a problem with your bees, something that you didn't think would happen, you're going to say, aha, I read about that. Or I heard David teach on this. I know what to do here. It's going to, and maybe if you don't know everything to do, it'll start coming to you. So my point is, don't stay in a place of learned helplessness. In other words, don't depend on air traffic control to tell you everything you need to do when you open up a hive. Instead, work hard to learn and grasp a broad spectrum of knowledge in beekeeping, and that way, as you begin to work your hive, it will get easier and easier throughout the years. Now, how many years does it take for you to become really comfortable with bees and understanding bees real thoroughly? All right, let me tell you, okay? There comes a point when you're going to have an aha moment in beekeeping and you're going to say, this really makes a lot of sense. Is it your first year? Of course not. We all know that. Is it your second year? No. Third year? Fourth year? Fifth year? Things start to make sense. I say that not to discourage you, but to encourage you. That if you stay in the saddle, ride that bull of beekeeping, for 5 years, it will start making sense. And you'll tame that bull after 5 years, where now it won't try to buck you off. You'll be able to say, aha, I know what's going on in this hive. I know what to do. This is making sense to me now. I've got it. I've arrived. Now it can happen earlier. I understand, you know, after 2 or 3 years, if you're really in it every day, if you're just like thrust into the gearing of beekeeping, and that's what you do 8 hours a day, you can accelerate how fast you learn. But most people aren't in that. Most people have jobs, they have things, and they can't always work their bees all the time. So it usually takes about 5 years. That's a known fact. And oftentimes that's true with about everything. After 5 years, you're a much better driver of a car than you are your first year. After 5 years of flying a plane, you're a much better pilot than you are your first year. Everybody knows that. That's just the way things are. 5 years of playing basketball, better player. 5 years of football, better football player. That's the way it works, all right? So here's the deal. A lot of people start off in their first year, they've watched a bunch of YouTube videos, they've seen David Burns do stuff on YouTube, and after 1 year, they expect to be at his level. Now, I don't claim to be, just because I'm a master beekeeper doesn't mean I know everything. I don't know everything. Just because I make YouTube videos and I say things doesn't mean it's my way or the highway. I don't believe that. I believe we all have a different approaches to beekeeping, and your way might be a lot better than my way. So I never claim to have the corner of all knowledge. It's not my way or the highway. I don't believe that. You might think I do, you might accuse me of that, but it's not who I am at all. But sometimes you get frustrated when you watch a YouTube video and you want to be like the guy that you saw on YouTube or you read about. Why can't I be like him? I can't keep bees as good as he does. The truth of the matter is, you know, I've been at this well over 20 years. And other people that you're watching have been doing this longer and longer than 1 year, 2 year, 5 years. So in the process, here's what can go wrong. If you're a 1 year beekeeper and, let's see, how do I want to say this? And you lose your bees that winter and you start over again with another package of bees, and that year your bees die in the winter, you start over with another. You can do this 5 years in a row. You can lose your bees in the winter. On your 5th year, you're starting over again. You've learned a little bit. You've learned something, right? But since you've repeated this same scenario, it seems like you would still be a 1 year beekeeper after 5 years. You're a 1st year beekeeper. You've never become a 2nd year beekeeper. And it happens to a lot of people. So the skill set of running a more mature colony is never going to be in your, in your skill set. So it's important that we do pick up skills that we can add to it. I think it's important that we don't be dependent year after year after year on other people giving us answers without us first using critical thinking skills, doing our research, taking classes, going to conferences, and finally deciding what we think the problem is and the solution should be, and double checking with somebody that we respect. Rather than going to the person without using our critical thinking skills, without having a base of knowledge, without taking classes or going to conference, without understanding bee biology, and just going to that person for an answer. That's what I'm saying. I'm seeing more of the latter. I'm seeing more people just looking for the answer. And it doesn't always help. And certainly doesn't help long term. It doesn't help in the individual to grow in understanding bee biology and to be able to do it on their own. Man, when I started beekeeping, like I've said before, I just didn't have anything to fall back on. There wasn't an internet. There wasn't YouTube. I just didn't have much to run on. And so I was forced to be a self-starter, self-learned person in beekeeping. And now you may not understand this. I'm being a little facetious here, but back in the day, we had what was called a library. If you don't know what a library, I know, but it's true. I look that old. But a library was a big building, and they had a lot of books in there, and the books were labeled with a thing called a Dewey Decimal System. You would go to this big box and you would open drawers and look at little cards and select the book that you wanted, and then you could look under beekeeping and find a title. Then it would have a number, and you would go walk around the library until you followed the Dewey Decimal Code until you found your number, and there's a book. It was genius, you know. I know they still have them now, but it's different, right? My wife in her childhood used books to just escape into other countries and other concepts, and just it was so comforting for my wife as a little girl, a little schoolgirl. And in fact, she has claimed to have read every single book in the Paris, Illinois library in her days. That's back in the 60s and 70s. But reading books is powerful for my wife. But a library is where I went when I started beekeeping because it's kind of all there was. But I'm going to tell you what, right now, boy, here it comes. Oh, get ready for this. Hold on, get your notepads ready. Man, you get some of those old beekeepers in the 1800s, early 1900s, and read their books or their articles. Ooh, wow. That is where I learned the most about beekeeping, and I'm glad I did. It is astounding. Their level of knowledge, their level of understanding colonies, frames, diseases. 1800s, early 1900s. Woo! You can look at the Gutenberg, what's it called? A project, and they have a lot of these books and articles. My friend John Benham, he's a EAS master beekeeper. He's read all those old time books like that. I have too. And some of those people that wrote those books and those articles, ooh, the knowledge, oh, it's just mind blowing, and it's free. It's just astounding. Now you sink your teeth into that, you're going to learn a lot pretty fast. But that's my point. You got to really start diving into beekeeping thoroughly, and try to wean yourself off of depending on other people to give you the answers. Use other people to double check your answer. Nothing wrong with that. Get a second opinion or something. But don't let other people be air traffic control and you're totally inexperienced and you're just using another person to tell you every step you should take. You've got to, hey, here's a lot of you have spent time learning about bees before you started. That helps tremendously, I think. If you can learn about bees, even before you get bees your first year, that's powerful. So that's my little nugget I've wringed out of 20 plus years of beekeeping. Got a little drop of little nugget of thought here, unedited, unscripted, and that is just being able to be self-taught. You don't have to be a PhD, you don't have to be an entomologist. You can know a lot about bees by doing your own research and spending your own time in your hive just soaking up all of that beautiful, rich observation. I said something the other day, and I said it a little bit differently than I'm going to say it here. But I think the best person, if you're going to ask me who I want to seek out for beekeeping answers, beekeeping help, it's going to be somebody that has spent years observing bees, has spent years in a hive. I don't want answers from somebody that never has made a beekeeping mistake. I really don't. I want somebody that can honestly say, whew, man, when I started, I lost so many hives, I made so many mistakes, but I learned from every one of those mistakes. Now I don't make as many mistakes anymore. I want that person because I believe they've been down the school of hard knocks. They really have. And I think that's a person that really knows a lot about bees, you know. Experience, critical thinking, trying something, failing, trying something different until you hit on something that by observing your bees, you come to this point of enlightenment that I'm starting to understand this better because I've done it for so long now, it's starting to make sense to me. So be patient with yourself. If you're trying to get in there and be like somebody on YouTube or somebody that's written a book or something on beekeeping your first year, it's not going to happen. It would be very abnormal if that happened your first year. So give it time. You need to be, think of it as a crock pot. Beekeeping is like crock pot cooking. If you don't know what a crock pot is, a crock pot is like this big pot and it simmers, it cooks slow. It was real, I think crock pots were more popular back in the day. I don't know if they are anymore as much, are they? I'm not a cook. I don't think we have a crock pot we use anymore. But microwave, on the other hand, beep, you know, it's done in a minute. So beekeeping is not a microwave meal, it's a crock pot meal. Beekeeping is something you do over and over, and you keep piling on knowledge and experience year after year until year 5, I got a hoverfly by my ear. Year 5, it starts making a lot of sense to you. Wow, I think that's just powerful. Well, this is the month of August, and if you're desperately looking for tips, what you should be doing in the month of August, I made a video to calm your nerves down, make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing in the month of August. Check the video right over here. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys over there.